Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. I'm incredibly grateful for the support shown on my last video, and I would like to give a special thanks to everyone who subscribed. It truly means a lot to me. Now, before we begin, I would like to humbly request that you like the video and leave a comment down below. It really helps the channel grow. And I love getting feedback from what I hope will turn into a lovely community of brave adventurers. Now, with that out of the way, hang your armor on the wall, warm yourself by the fire, and let us begin with another dive into the world of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. This story is complicatingly titled, "You Don't Scare Me, I Will Kill You Without Hesitation," also known as the absolute worst player I have ever had the misfortune of playing with. So, this was my very first D&D game. It started out well enough. The party consisted of me, playing a human druid who had the only brain cell, my best friend playing a Kenku bardlock, whose patron was Asmodeus, but hell was like an office building, our mutual friend playing a half-orc barbarian armed with a plunger war axe and 0 brain cells, a human action grandma warlock, and an albino Kenku warlock who was basically an angsty teen with wings. Our DM wasn't the best DM or person, which is why he let this happen, but his garbo behavior is for another post. We were fine for a while. We went on adventures and had fun, not really having a direction to go except wherever the DM pointed us. All in all, the party was a cohesive unit with good dynamics. My druid basically adopted the bardlock and the barbarian. The action grandma was, well, like a cool grandma to everyone. And while the albino Kenku tried to keep his distance, he was pretty much adopted as the younger sibling of the group. The family we found was strong, and we were having fun. Enter a new player. A player who played a tiefling rogue. And this guy joining started the chain of events that led to this campaign becoming completely undone and disbanded. First off, he was introduced when he randomly decided to jump into battle with us in the woods. No reason, no motive, no actual integration. He showed up, killed who we were fighting with ease, and just decided to come along. It wasn't even addressed, he just started following us and carrying the decapitated head everywhere. Yup, his introduction was showing up everyone, I'm pretty sure he was a higher level than us, and carrying around the okay, English lessons with Den of the Drake. Decapitated. God, okay. Decapitated head of someone he murdered. For some reason, the DM liked this guy a lot and played favorites. For example, he managed to steal 84 breadsticks from a joint somehow, with only one roll. Meanwhile, the bardlock, who loves to read, can't find a single book in all the land, to the point of defying all logic and railroading. We were in a big kingdom, and somehow there wasn't a single bookstore, library, or general store that had books. The rogue managed to find a pen to steal on a body that had nothing to offer, and the bardlock had one of the only 2 books he ever found dissolve into dust in his own hands. Basically, what I'm saying is that this guy got away with, and was rewarded for, doing horrible things or dragging the party down with him. In the short time he was around, he was incredibly creepy towards the barbarian, who was mentally a child due to amnesia. FBI, open up! Like, he refused to sleep anywhere that wasn't near them. Constantly would pause to say he felt up their muscles, etc. His behavior ended up making the player of the barbarian hate their character, because the big lovable goof was poisoned for them, because they were constantly being fetishized by this guy. 2. He constantly and loudly stated that he was going to steal. Almost every single NPC we met hated us immediately because of his behavior. He didn't listen to reason when I, or the other players, tried to ask him to stop, because he was making the game unplayable. 3. constantly tried to hog the spotlight for himself. There was a point in time when he discovered that he could do magic. Who knows? And he immediately went to shove it in everyone else's face and try to get the other players to ooh and ah at his new powers, despite everyone but the action grandma and the DM despising him by then. 4. Put a massive wedge between the barbarian and everyone else in the party. He constantly dragged them into his stuff and pitted the barbarian against myself and the Bardlock constantly, despite how beforehand we were like a tightly knit group and had a really good dynamic. Like, he straight up acted like an abusive, controlling boyfriend trying to keep us away from them. Ooh, red flag, red flag, red flag. And then there were the worst offenses. All of them involving myself or the Bardlock, as we were the only 2 players and player characters to call him out on his crap. He pried. A lot. He constantly tried to force our backstories out of us, because he, quote, didn't like secrets, and treated both of us like dirt, because we had the human decency to try and tell him, hey, maybe don't do that? He sat down, in-game, and had a conversation with the Bardlock, threatening him if, quote, he ever stepped out of line. In his eyes, aka, did anything wrong by him. Yep, the murder hobo tried to threaten his fellow player into doing what he wanted. And then came the biggest and most lasting thing he did. He threatened to kill my druid to her face. The story goes, he, the barbarian, and the Bardlock were all arguing over the most recent stupid stunt he pulled, as usual. I stepped in and tried to stop it, but this time he got angrier and escalated. Thinking on what my character would do, I left the room because I was getting nowhere. See, my character is a druid who's not good at peopling because she spent the last decade alone in the woods. And she's a sort of timid person who's soft-spoken and is prone to getting stuck in her own head due to backstory trauma, TM. But she can and will speak up and be assertive when it comes to protecting other people. The Bardlock followed, and we actually had a rather touching conversation that was the highlight in this horribleness. And then it was crashed by the rogue. My character was in the middle of explaining how they got their new weapon. I had just multiclassed as a paladin and got a weapon out of it. And when the rogue saw it, he immediately started interrogating her. And when she just put it away because she didn't want to talk to him, he just got up all up in her face and straight rolled to intimidate her. Got a high enough score and it worked. And she ran away because, nope. The Bardlock eventually followed, and we got another sad and bittersweet scene between them. The player of the rogue asked me to have her leave and run into him in the hall, saying that they could talk it through and make amends. I said, yeah, sure, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, how wrong I was. Alright, I'm just gonna go ahead and interject here because I see something super messed up what the DM did here. Something I like to do in my games is I have a rule. You never, with the exception of deception, ever allow your players to roll charisma checks against other players. You have to make that player either actually persuade the other player or actually intimidate the other player. Please don't actually intimidate other people. It's really fucked up. But if you allow your players to make rolls against other players, you might as well just appoint your bard to be the party leader. You might as well just be playing alone with the sorcerer, because it takes away all player agency. And no one wants to play a role-playing game where they can't role-play the way they want to role-play. Anyway, tangent over, back to the story. He was punching a tree and screaming, as edgelords do. And when I went to talk to him, he immediately snapped at me and started being awful again. He threatened the Bardlock, who, again, had just had some very touching interactions with, to her face for no reason, and she finally stood up to him. For real. His response was trying to be scary. This is exactly how the conversation went. Druid. Kid. There's no way on this plane you could scare me. Rogue. Kid.
Woman, I have been through so much. I have murdered close to 40 people, decapitated my ex-husband, slaughtered families. I have lived my life surviving everything nearly unscathed. And here you are, calling me kid. I will literally kill you and not bat an eye. And I'm a kid. Am I a joke to you?
Yes. Yes, you are. Yep, you got that right. He asked me to find him to resolve the conflict, and when I got there, he spilled the most edgy, stupid backstory conceivable, which originally included a line about, I can't say that word, that I cut out because it was incredibly untasteful, and one of the things lined out as a big no-no for this campaign. And then he threatened the life of my character to her face. I gave up, and I just called him out, because at this point, I was just tired. But wait, there's more. Later on, he used this as a threat, as leverage to make her skin a giant snake, when she's made an oath to herself never to hunt or cut open animals. He made her break her defining character trait as a druid because I didn't want my character to be murdered. And even later on, around the turning point where nobody was having fun anymore, we fought a big monster that almost one-shotted the barbarian, and the bardlock ran to escape because he was small and gonna die if he stayed around. I was gonna follow him before the DMPC came in and saved the day magically and made us all look like fools. The rogue's response to this? Tracking down the bardlock afterwards and chewing him out for that, straight up slapping him for it. When we all know that if he had stayed, he'd be dead. The rogue turned the entire party, except for me, who was buried in the rubble of the place we fought and fighting to stay alive, against him, and basically publicly shamed both the bardlock and the player for it. When my character arrived, she was relieved that he was okay, and let him know that running was okay and she was gonna do it too. Then the rogue got pissy again, and let it slip that he slapped the bardlock. That was the last straw. She lost it. She finally called him out for all of his BS, and when the barbarian was confused and asked why they were fighting, she looked him straight in the eyes, and before he could say anything, the rogue piped up and bragged about threatening to kill her. He was smiling and everything. Let me say that again. He threatened to kill the main healer of the party and bragged about it. Yeah, fuck this guy. End of story. Alright, so my thoughts. Unlike the last story where I could find some sort of fault in OP's hands, unfortunately this time around, OP is 100% innocent. All of this horror story's worst elements fall solely onto that tiefling rogue. I mean, intimidating other players, threatening to kill them, stealing everything. This guy ticks every box for worst possible rogue stereotypes. The best thing you could do with players like this is to just tell them to leave, that they're not wanted. Of course, it's easy for me and other internet troglodytes to say that. However, it's a bit more complicated than that. It really sounds like OP had her back against the wall here, mainly because of a bad DM who acted as an enabler for this problem player. And by the way OP worded it, he kinda sounds like he would be a horror story within himself, which hopefully we'll be getting a story about him soon, and I would love to read it as soon as I can find it. Anyway, I would like to thank all of you brave adventurers for listening. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you all next time in the Den of the Drake.